What's up, everybody? Emily Duplessis here, and I am playing around before we get started here with a couple of minutes to go. I am playing around with a screen share software that I found today. I spent a lot of time today researching and trying to find a screen share option so that I could share my screen with all of you tonight for what we're going to be doing. And so I am kind of playing around with it before we get started. So if you're here with me, grab a drink. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. And then I will go ahead and kind of share with you. I'm trying to kind of see on my phone how well I can actually see the information that I want to share with you tonight and see if it's even worth doing it this way or if it's better off to just have me hold my phone up and show you that way. So grab a drink. We'll get started here in a couple minutes. What do you think? So grab a drink. We'll get started here in a couple minutes. I feel like it's hard to see.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
Okay. I'm consulting with Kirk right now to see because he has it on his phone. I'm consulting with Kirk right now to see because he has it on.
If you turn sideways, it's a little bit better, but yeah, it's still hard to see.
I'm consulting with Kirk right now to see because he has it on.
If you turn sideways, it's a little bit better, but yeah, it's still.
All right. Let's see here. I think what I'm going to do, let me know, those of you who are tuned in, let me know how well it is for you to be able to see what is on my computer. If it's difficult to see, I will stop this live and just jump on again and just hold my phone, and that way I can kind of zoom in and get closer to stuff. So let me know what you think. If it's hard to see, let me know, and that will help me. If so, then I'll just jump off and jump back on real quick. And then we can, get moving from there. So let me know what you think in the comment section, please. All right, Greg, you said it looks good, that you can see it, so that's looking good. Anybody else comment? Igor, hi from Gatlinburg. Great to have you with us. You said it looks good, that you can see it, so that's looking good. Anybody else comment? Igor, hi from Gatlinburg. Great to have you with us. All right. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. Oh, Greg, there's an echo. That was probably because I had the video up on my phone. So let me know now after you've said that there's an echo. Is there still an echo or are we good? Like I said, I actually had the video up on my phone because I'm on my laptop right now. And so I wanted to see that echo probably went away now. At least I'm hoping. Hey, Richard, glad to have you back tonight. Thanks for joining us. Steve, welcome. All right. Good to go. All right, let's go ahead and jump in then. It's about 8:32, so we're a couple of minutes in. We got some people popping in. For those of you who are just joining, I spent the day today trying to find a software that I could use, that I could share my screen with you tonight, because so much of what we're going to do on tonight's training is going to rely on kind of the computer and being on the computer and being able to show you listings and the property analyzer. And so I thought it would be really difficult for me to be kind of sitting here holding my phone the entire time and trying to be, making sure that you guys are seeing everything that is important. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to share the screen. Hopefully this will work. It looks like it's working. I got some feedback, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in. All right, so we are at day 4 of the training. Believe it or not, we are in day 4 of 5 of this 5-day challenge. And today is, like in my email that I sent out earlier, tonight's kind of like the big dance. Like all week we've been building up piece by piece to get to the point where we're actually going to be running the numbers on properties. And so that's what's going to happen tonight on tonight's training. So if you are here with me, if you got my email earlier, I sent it out, I think at about 5 o'clock this evening. If you haven't opened that up, go ahead and open that up. Or if you even are in last night's email, you could even pull up last night's email. There's going to be a couple of major things that if you want to work along with me tonight, that I'm going to have you open up. And those 2 things, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. I'm in the email right now, are the analyzer and the listings that we're going to be using tonight on tonight's training. So if you want to pull those up, that way you can kind of work along with me. I can't tell you enough how important it is to just kind of practice using the analyzer. Richard, you said that you use the analyzer on a triplex you're looking at Sunday, 40% ROI. Woohoo! That is pretty awesome. That's a great ROI, man. I hope you can latch that one up pretty quickly. But we're going to be actually looking at some listings tonight and plugging numbers in. So I'll be plugging them in here. And if you can plug them along with me on your computer or your end, I think that will be helpful for you as well. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pull up the property analyzer. And I showed this to you last night when we were on our call. And I'm also going to go back and I'm going to pull up, the dreaded circle. All right, I'm going to pull up the listings that we're going to work with tonight. All right, so if you are tuning in and you're pulling up the property analyzer, remember, like I said last night, you're going to want to make a copy. If you don't make a copy, all right, you are going to not be able to edit it. Obviously, I can edit it because it's my spreadsheet, but if you go up to File and you go to Make a Copy, it's going to pop up this box. This is where you put your name, whatever you want to name it, and then you're going to save it to your drive. So I'm just going to say Property Analyzer, and I'm going to go ahead and do that with all of you. And then there it is, and it pops up, and this is the one that you will be able to edit. All right, so that's the one that you're going to work with. So name it whatever you want to name it, that you're going to remember what the name is, and go ahead and do that. That's going to be the first step. All right, so we are going to be working with the property analyzer tonight. Like I mentioned last night, we have 3 different spreadsheets here. We have the spreadsheet for the single family property, we have the spreadsheet for a multi-unit, and then we have a spreadsheet for student rentals. And the reason really that we have 3 different spreadsheets is really because of the way that the income comes in for the different types of properties. So single families, it's super easy, right? You've got one person or one family, one tenant who's paying you the rent. So if you look at our analysis or our analyzer, you'll see that there is one little section for monthly rental income, right? And that's where you put that right there. Now, when you're dealing with a multi-unit, right, then you're going to have multiple units that are going to be paying you rent each month. And so therefore you're going to need different places for you to be able to put that payment, especially if the different units bring in different types of cash. So that is why that one is different. And then student rentals are a little bit different as well. And really, again, it only differs in the income section, because most student rentals, I'm not going to say all, but most student rentals, landlords will rent them or lease them by semester per student, right? So like we have a student rental house and we have 5 students in our student rental house, and each student pays per semester, right? So they're not paying like a monthly rent every single month. They pay, by, I think it's like our lease says July 1st for the upcoming August. And then they pay by, I think maybe in December sometime, I have to go back and look at the lease for the spring semester, right? And then that money that they pay covers, obviously throughout the course of the year. If we then, if students want to stay on in the summer, we have the option of renting the house out to them and they pay extra to stay there in the summer. But that's how a lot of student rentals are rented or leased by landlords. And so our spreadsheet reflects that. And so the formulas that are in there, and they're going to be calculating, per student. They're going to take the number, right? And they're going to times that by 2 because there's 2 semesters in the school year. And so the formulas in there are based off of that. So again, it's based off of semester, not month. So that's why we have 3 different property analyzer spreadsheets. So I just wanted to kind of give you a clue on that, and that's why we do that. So we are going to be looking at a couple of different listings tonight, and I thought because I've emailed you and I pulled up a couple of listings this week on our trainings, and so I thought we would actually run an analysis on one of the properties that I sent you the other night. So one of the activities that I had you do the other night was go through a listing and try to find some of the important numbers that you need whenever you're running a property analysis. And so this was the property that I sent you. Ironically, it's a property we're actually looking at purchasing. Kirk and I are talking about it actually this evening, all day today. Today has been a real estate day. And so this is one that we're kind of looking at. So I figured, well, what the heck? I might as well go ahead and bring it on here with you guys and let you kind of see a real property that we're looking at potentially purchasing. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to put some of the numbers into the property analyzer. And like I said, I'm going to do this with you right on here. And I'm actually going to move that to another tab. That way I can kind of split the screen a little bit for you guys. That way it's just I'm not flipping back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Okay, so obviously here our list price on this property is $140, right? And so now I know because Kirk and I have been looking at this property and making offers on this property now for a couple of months. This has been on the market for quite a while. If you look here, it says that it's been on realtor.com for 301 days, right? So like I said the other night, you either are dealing with a really super motivated seller because, it's been on the market so long, they're getting desperate, they just want to unload it, or you're dealing with the type of seller that we're dealing with this property who is stubborn and is kind of bullheaded about the fact that he wants to get as close to list price as possible, even though that list price we know is way above what it really should be because we own 2 duplexes in this town and we know what we've paid per door on these duplexes. And so this is definitely a little bit more expensive in terms of that market value. And so that's why Kirk and I are also being stubborn in the sense of we're not going to go up and meet him at list price or even super close to list price because we know he is overpriced, right? So first things first, we've got 140. So really, honestly, Kirk and I were just talking tonight, and our target price for this is going to be probably at about, we'd like to get it in the 120s, but we potentially would maybe go up as high as 130. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in here, right? I'm not going to put 140 in because we won't pay 140 for it. So I'm not going to run the numbers at 140 because we just don't have an interest in the property at that price. And so our down payment on a triplex at this point is probably going to be at least 25%. We're at a place now. Let me fix that real quick. We're at a place now with our the amount of properties that we own that we're typically having to put 25% down, especially if it's a multi-unit. Who knows? We may even have to go to 30. It might just depend on the bank at this point, but I'm going to go ahead. The banks that we have been working with have been around 25%, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. So I went ahead and I put 25% into the down payment. So that tells me what our down payment's going to be, $32,500. Gives me the now loan amount based off of, the purchase price less our down payment. Interest rate right now, I'm going to say it's about 5.25%. That might even be a little low. Rates have been kind of going up. I mean, we have rental properties that rates are in the 3s. And so I don't think those days are not here now and probably won't be here for a while. But I'm going to put in 5.25 in terms of interest rate. And then I'm going to go ahead and look at my payment with principal, right? So we're looking at $538. So that's my payment that's looking at principal and interest, right? I'm going to go down to closing costs. Closing costs, probably about $3,000 to $5,000, I would say, is kind of where we are on average. I'm going to put $4,000 in here. A good rule of thumb, though, I know somebody asked this, I think, last night on the training. A good rule of thumb is usually about 3% of the price. And so, that's kind of a rule of thumb. It could be higher, it could be lower, but that's at least a good estimate for you to be able to throw in when you're running a property analysis. Our annual property tax, if we go back to that listing and I scroll down, here it says that the taxes in 2016 were $14.94. Now the other night on, I think it was maybe day 2 when I talked about trusting but verifying, this is a good example of this because here on Realtor.com, which is where I pulled this listing from, the taxes are listed at $14.94. Right? When I actually looked at the real listing that we were given from our real estate agent, the one that was pulled from the MLS, taxes were actually around $21.48. And so you can see there's quite a bit of difference going from here on Realtor.com, $14.94, so just about $1,500. So there's about almost a $650 difference between what was listed on Realtor.com and the reality of what the taxes were. And so that just goes to show trust but verify. You can pull the numbers off of here and run them for your quick and dirty analysis, which right now we're running a quick and dirty analysis. That's what we're focusing on in tonight's training. We're not going to jump into the more in-depth property analysis that, we do some other trainings with that, and that'll be coming soon enough. Tonight's kind of like the quick and dirty. So you use our property analyzer, you throw in some quick numbers, and you get at least a ballpark of what your ROI is going to be. So for, all of you out there, when you get a listing, you can pull the taxes off of here, but then if the numbers work at the taxes you pulled, that's definitely going to be a number that you're going to want to verify when you make contact with a real estate agent, right? Annual insurance for a triplex, I'm going to say probably around $800, just this is based off of what we know from our other properties. If this is your first property, if you're planning to house hack, right, like a duplex or a triplex, or even a single family unit, you're really going to want to probably reach out to an insurance agent and get a quote because you're going to want to know as closely as possible to what a number is going to be for you, right? So, our condos and townhouses, our insurance on those is typically in the 300s. With our duplexes, you're looking at $600, $700, maybe here with a triplex, we're looking maybe at $800. So it just depends on the property. It depends on the quality of the property, how new the property is, what it would, if it's a newer property, your insurance is probably going to be a little bit higher. All right, so now upfront expenses. If I come down here, vacancy rate, I could go ahead and put that in after, like I mentioned the other night, we don't typically do like a percentage. We'll take, once we calculate all of the total all-in expense is going to be on the property, for 1 month, then we'll take that and we'll throw that into our vacancy rate over here. And then we'll just assume that, the property might be vacant for 1 month, and we'll assume that and we'll throw that in over here. So I don't actually throw that in until later. If there's any kind of upfront renovations that you have to do, you're going to go ahead and throw that there. And so I know for this property in particular, the landlord just renovated 2 of the properties. He evicted 2 of the tenants and renovated those. He has 1 other unit that the tenant is still in. And I can tell you that in part of our offer, both times we've made offers on this, and the next time we make an offer, the offer will be contingent on him evicting her and fixing that property as well, because it is smelly and cat infested and basically looks like a hoarder lived there. I mean, it's not nice. And so, we're under the assumption that he's already gone and done it twice and fixed them up. Why not just do it a third time? And then to be all honestly, I would almost rather buy this property completely vacant, because by his track record, he hasn't put in the best tenants in there if he's already evicted 2 and potentially will be evicting the third one. And who knows, he's unloading the property. So is he really going to care what type of tenant he gets in there? Probably not. So I would actually rather acquire this property tenant free and be able to screen the tenants and put our own tenants in there so that we know we're putting good people and good tenants who are going to respect the property in there. Any kind of advertising or listing fees, you would put that there, and then you would get after your upfront expenses, your total cash invested. So right now we're looking at about $36,500 for our total cash that will be out of our pocket. If we head on over here to the other column, we're looking at our principal and interest payment, $538.40. Our property tax is going to be about $179 a month. Property insurance is broken down to a little over $66 a month. And then we get into those other monthly expenses that come in. So management fees, Kirk and I will manage this property ourselves, so we wouldn't be putting anything in there. Again, if you're planning to use property management, you would put that there. Or like I mentioned the other night, down the road, if you're planning to, unload it onto a property manager, you might want to throw that calculation in now. So you're going to want to find out, potentially, you might want to just call around and find out what's kind of the going rate for property managers in the area, right? This property is pretty close to us. I don't know if we would ever really turn it over to property management. I can tell you that our two other multi-units that we own in this town, one of them we haven't been to, I don't think, since we closed on the property, which was a couple of years ago. The other one, I think we were there before we got it rented, and so we went in and did a little bit of cleaning and haven't really been back since. And so, these are very minimal in terms of need. They are not needy tenants. They are not needy properties. So, we get this property, we put the right people in there, then why give that money to somebody else when it's pretty easy for us, in terms of managing it. So I don't think we would turn that over. Utilities. All right, so on this property, I don't think it says on here, but on the actual listing that I was given, it talks about how there are separate lines coming in. Now, right now, the landlord is paying all of the utilities on this property, and they are outrageous. No wonder he's trying to unload this property. I think when we ran them a while ago, you were looking at like maybe somewhere between $500 and $800 a month he's paying on utilities when some of these units are separated, right? There are separate water tanks. There's a couple separate water lines coming in. So there's separate electrical boxes. So, when we went and looked at this property, I was baffled by the fact that why is he paying all this money for utilities that's eating into his profit when these things could be set up for the tenants to be taking care of at least some of their utilities? And so my only guess is that because he had not the greatest tenants in there, maybe they weren't paying their bills, and so he just took it on himself to pay them. I'm not sure what the story was there, but Kirk and I would separate and put the utilities on the tenants as much as possible. But I'm still, because Kirk and I are kind of the worst case scenario type of people for utilities, I'm still going to put in about $250 just for certain things that we might not be able to split. There might be certain things I know with the borough, right? Like trash, sewer, some of that stuff in our other properties, we pay just for the entire property. That's not, distinguished by unit. So it's just for the property. So we would have a little bit of cost on our end. So I'm going to put $250 in, and that's about what we budget for our duplexes. And nothing is split in our duplexes. So we pay all the utilities on those, but here we have the opportunity to split some of that stuff. So I'm going to put $250 in there. Outdoor maintenance, we write it into the lease that the tenants take care of that. So they're in charge of lawn. They're in charge of snow removal. One of our properties, we actually took them a push lawnmower. It was an old one that we were going to get rid of and get a new one. So we took it there and we left it there. So we gave them that. They just have to use it. So now we're looking at no condo fee or HOA because it's not in a community like that. We're looking at a payment of about $1,000, $1,034. So the monthly rental income, and now that I look at this, I realize that I'm doing it on the wrong one, so I'm going to have to do a quick calculation. My bad. The monthly rental income, if we look here on the listing, he has a one for $475, one for $775, and one for $800. And so, when we calculate that up, and because I went on the wrong analyzer, of course I would do that. I'm going to go ahead and just calculate it up on my phone. So we're looking at $22,050 for what this property will bring in every single month. right? And so that's based off of the numbers that he gave. So we're looking at a cash flow of a little over $1,000 a month. We're looking at gross annual income of $24,600, and we are looking at net yearly income of almost $12,200. So our cash on cash return on investment for this property would be 33%, almost 33.5%, which is, pretty crazy in the sense of, that's a really good ROI. And like I said, Kirk and I shoot for, typically in the 20s, around 20 or between 20 and 25% ROI. And so, this is great because this is a property that isn't needy. It's in a good, nice, kind of blue collar town, and in an area where there's a really good rental market. And so, when we run the numbers like this and we look at this, it's something that is really promising. Like I've mentioned, Kirk and I have already made a couple of offers on this property, and we are in the process of putting in yet another one. And so it's definitely something based off of the numbers here that we would pursue. So, back to kind of what I've been preaching all week about this, you have to have your line in the sand. What is your line in the sand in terms of, what you're shooting for ROI? Like I mentioned, Kirk and I shoot for 20, 25%. So now looking at this and seeing 33% for the quick and dirty analysis, like, heck yeah, we're going to pursue it. And like we've pursued it, right? We're going to go after it. Now, when we actually get in and we run the more detailed property analysis that takes into consideration CapEx and deferred maintenance and tax brackets and those sorts of things, that ROI will probably drop a little bit. And that's okay. We're okay with that because there's enough spread here that it's okay if it drops a little bit and it still makes sense. Now, if we were to run the numbers on this property and it was maybe like a 16 or 17% ROI for the quick and dirty, knowing that we shoot for about 20% ROI, I can tell you that we probably would say, yeah, probably not. It doesn't meet what we're looking for, especially because now when we actually get into the more detailed numbers, that's probably going to drop by a percentage or two. And so, we're not going to go after that. So definitely something to consider. It goes to show how important it is, one, to have your baseline ROI, to know exactly what you're looking for, because it's going to be easy to go, okay, yes, it meets it, let's go after it, or okay, I ran the numbers, it doesn't work, boom, I'm done with it. I forgot about it, right? So that's critical. It's also really important for you to have an analyzer, something to be able to run the numbers quickly. You don't want to be sitting there running these numbers by hand. You need a tool, you need something that's going to enable you to do this quickly, accurately, and somewhat on the go, right? So if you haven't gone into the email and clicked and made yourself a copy of the analyzer, make sure that you do that because it's totally free. It's for you to be able to use. If this is making sense, give me a thumbs up. Questions that you have, definitely throw those into the comment section. I have my phone up, and so I'm kind of following along on my phone. So definitely throw in any kind of questions or comments that you have related to kind of this first analysis, and I'll make sure to talk about those. I'm going to get a quick drink. All right, no questions so far. Make sure you throw them in there. Questions about how to use the analyzer, anything like that, feel free to throw those in there. All right. So in the email that I sent to you tonight, following the listing that we just went over, I included some other things for you to take a look at. So I included a single family unit listing for you to take a look at. It's of a townhouse, a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhouse. So I wanted us to take a look at analyzing a multi-unit, and then I wanted you guys to take a look at, running the numbers on just a single family unit. So I figured, hey, what the heck? Let's go ahead and quickly kind of run the numbers on this one as well so you can see and get some extra practice with running the numbers. So here we're looking at a list price of about $120. Now again, Kirk and I actually own properties in this vicinity. We own a townhouse here. We own a condo here. Now we bought those for 4 or 5 years ago for, in the 70s. So the fact that properties in that area are now up into the 120s to the 140s is really pretty crazy, to be honest. And so, definitely something to think about here. I think this is an REO bank-owned property. And so I think our target would be more around like the 110, 105, 110 mark, because we would be going in and definitely having to put a little bit of work in. So I'm going to say our target price on this would probably be about 105. For this, we might be able to find a bank to be able to only have to put 20% down since it is a single family unit, which would be pretty sweet. I'm going to keep the interest rate the same, 30-year term. I'm going to keep that the same. I'm going to kind of go through this kind of quickly. We're going to look here, our total taxes. You can see here for this property, $682. And I can tell you right now, that's one of the benefits of investing in this area in Virginia where we invest, because the properties are nice properties. It's a great location, and the taxes are so cheap. It's awesome. I'm going to say insurance on this is probably going to be about $350. And again, I'm going to say that because I'm basing it off of what I know we pay on our other townhouses and condos. So I'm going to say it's about $350. Now here, right, so this is REO bank owned. So we're going to probably go in and be doing a little bit of work. We actually did a walkthrough. This is in Virginia, so it's out of state. We did a walkthrough with our real estate agent there yesterday. She jumped on, FaceTime and walked through the property and showed it to us. And there definitely needs to be a little bit of work. She said there's a really bad pet odor, so we'd have to obviously go in and remedy that. Maybe that means replacing some of the flooring and carpet to help get rid of that. The property might need a little bit of paint, could probably use some new countertops. They weren't really the greatest, and it had no appliances. So I'm going to say we might go in and just based off of our experience with going in and doing some light renovations, we could potentially end up putting into this maybe like, I'm going to say $3,500 to $4,000. I don't think we need to replace all the flooring. I can tell you in some of our other properties where we went in and we replaced all the flooring, we did paint, we did fixtures, we did ceramic tile, some of that stuff, some of the electrical going around and switching out light fixtures and sockets and switches and doors and things like that. And we ended up around $5-ish grand on both of the times that we've done that. So I don't think we'd have to go to that extreme in this property. So I'm going to say maybe about $4 grand that we'd end up spending in upfront costs. So I'm making sure to include that here because I know before I put a tenant in this property, I'm going to have to do this. So it's going to be included in my upfront cost. So now we're looking at about $29,000 in terms of total cash invested. So that's taking your down payment, closing costs, and these upfront renovations that we would do into consideration. All right, so we jump over here to monthly expenses, utilities, because this is a single unit, I would have the tenants take care of those. And so management fees, we still manage our properties in Virginia, so I wouldn't put anything in there right now. And, assuming we continue down the path that we're doing, again, those properties, we don't ever go to them. We have great tenants in them. So, some of these properties we don't really ever anticipate unless we grow to 50, 100, 150 units, which you never know. On any given day, one of us wants to do that, and on any given day, one of us doesn't want to do that. Then maybe we would look at that. But at this point, they're so low maintenance for us that it's not worth it. Now, there is probably an HOA or condo fee. So if I look here, we're looking at $135 quarterly. So we calculate that, 135, we're going to times that by 4 because there's 4 quarters, and I'm pretty sure it ends up being $45 a month when I ran that before. So under the HOA condo fee, I'm going to put $45, and so we're looking at about $595 all in for the payment for this. Now, this is a single family unit, and I can tell you we own a townhouse that we rent. It's a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath townhouse, or no, 2-bedroom, 1-bath townhouse that rents for $925 right across the street. And we own a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo that's right across the street in this kind of same general area that rents for $1,000. Now this is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, so it's a little bit bigger. We obviously would be going in and updating a few things, and so that would help. And so, knowing we get $1,000 for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, we know that we could probably get a little bit more for this property because it is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, and it's a townhouse. But I can tell you that if you don't know what stuff rents for, right? And Richard, I think you asked about what site gives you rental comps. I'm going to get to that now. There's a couple ways you can go about getting rental comps. So the first way that I took a screenshot of and I thought I would share with you is our realtor ran kind of a rental comp analysis for us. And so she went through in the MLS and she was able to pull up probably in the last, I don't know, 8 months, what properties have rented for there. So list price was actually what they rented for. And so you can see here, bedrooms, bathrooms. Here is a 3, 2.5 that rented for $1,000. Here's a 3, 1 bedroom, or 3, 1.5 that rented for $1,100. Here's a 2-bedroom, 1.5 that rented for $1,100. So, I think it would be safe to say, based off of kind of seeing this, that we probably could get $1,100 for it. And knowing what we know about that area and what we already get, I would say a good estimate would be, about $1,100. We could push the envelope and go for a little bit more, depending on how our fixes, ended up and if the market would swing at all by the time. But I would say probably a good estimate would be $1,100. And again, that might be on the low end, but that's okay. If you don't have a real estate agent who's going to go ahead and run this rental comp analysis, there are sites that you can go to. And Richard, this is something that you asked. A lot of times I'll just jump on Craigslist and I'll put in the town and I'll pull up and see what stuff's listed for. I'll look at comparable, rentals, and I'll say, all right, what are comparable rentals, listing for, or what are people asking for? And that will give me a good idea of what kind of the market is. You can go to things like Trulia and Zillow. You can do the same thing on there. Richard, Rentometer is a good one to check out. We actually had an agent, and he was on the podcast not that long ago as well, mentioned that he uses Rentometer. We haven't used it yet, but he said that he was really shocked at how accurate it was in terms of giving you an estimate of what things could rent for. So I would definitely check that one out. What I would say and what I would caution everybody to is when I say go look at Trulia and look at Zillow and maybe even Realtor.com, I'm saying get on, and I'll even pull it up right now and I'll show you, right? So I would say get on those sites, and I'm going to pull up Realtor.com. And I'm not saying look at the, in the listing, a lot of times it will give you like a recommended, like the average and the median of what you can get for rent. I would not trust those, because I can tell you right now, when I've looked in there, for properties in our town, I can tell you right now that they are way overpriced in terms of what they're saying you can get for rent. There were some like 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses that it said on there that you could get, $1,200 to $1,300 a month for these houses, and that is not going to happen in the town that we live in. So Richard, you said you thought Rentometer was a little high too. It might depend on your area. I know you said you're in Philly. The guy that we had talked to, he's in like outside of Nashville, and he said it was pretty accurate. So I think it probably depends on your area too, and also maybe depending on how big your area is. If it's taking into consideration the average of like a really big suburban area or an urban area, they might still be a little bit off versus being kind of in a small town area. But if you go to sites like Realtor.com and Zillow and Trulia and you click on rent, right? So you're not looking at buy, you're looking at rent. And I'll just, pull up Indiana, PA, right? That's where Kirk and I live. We live in Podunk, Western Pennsylvania, Indiana, PA. Right? And then you can just look and see what things go. Here's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath for $495. Another 1-bedroom, 1-bath for $495. This is probably a student rental. When I see this here, 1-bedroom, 1-bath, $2,900 a month, that makes me think it's probably a student rental, and that means $2,900 per semester. But yeah, so this is what I'll do. I'll just kind of scroll through and I'll see what stuff's renting for. And that will give me an idea. Here's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath for $500. Here's another one that I bet is a student rental, $3,200 a month, which probably means a semester. $500 a month, Philadelphia, 1-bedroom, 1-bath, right? So this is what I'll do, and I'll just scroll through and I'll check out and I'll see what other stuff is renting for that's comparable to the property that I'm looking at. So that's another way. It takes a little bit of, sweat equity in terms of sitting down and scrolling. I guess scroll equity instead of sweat equity. We can change that now to scroll equity. But it takes a little bit of scrolling and just to kind of see what's out there. But Another way to do it is to just make some phone calls. If you see signs, a lot of times when Kirk and I are driving, if we see something for rent or even for sale by owner, we'll just call and pretend that we are somebody interested, and we'll get information on it. We'll find out what it's being rented for. We'll find out if it's updated. We'll get the details on the property. We'll find out what it's renting for. And that's another way that we're able to kind of get an idea of comps. It does, like I said, take a little bit of work if you don't have an agent who can, pull a rental comp for you, like I showed you earlier. So, it just depends on which way you want to go. If you get an investor-friendly agent who you're going to work with, then you can ask them to go ahead and pull that rental comp. Definitely something that can save you time, when it comes to analyzing properties. So when I put in the $1,100 on this property, we're looking at about almost a 21% ROI. So again, something that is interesting. Kirk and I will probably go in and run a little bit more accurate numbers on this property and see, what maybe the target price is that we want to get. Definitely something we wouldn't run away from. Definitely something that we are probably going to proceed and look into a little bit more. The only, drawback with something like a townhouse or a condo is that you have those association fees that can go up at any time, and you don't really have any control of that. So that could potentially eat into your profit margin. So definitely something to think about if you're going to go the condo or single family route. We own some. We have 3 or 4 of them, and they've honestly been wonderful properties. But I, know a lot of people who have run into a lot of issues with association. So definitely just word of caution to you if you're interested in that. So what I want you to do is, like, my homework for you, if you want to call it that, my action steps for you after the training tonight, is to get the analyzer and to jump on to realtor.com or, whatever site you'd like to use and find properties in your town, your area. Pull them up and run the actual numbers and start getting a feel for what stuff looks like in terms of return and rentals in your town. So spend a little bit of time tonight, tomorrow, maybe even this weekend, and just start pulling up properties and kind of seeing what works, right? So, if Kirk and I were sitting here, or all of you are here, obviously, which property would you go after, right? I'd love to hear what you think about this. So just put it in the comment section. If you were, choosing between these 2 properties that I just showed you tonight, which one would you go after? They both have a decent ROI, right? They both have a pretty good return on investment. And so which one would you go after? Would you go after the triplex that with the tenant that needs to be evicted, whether the landlord, current landlord, evicts them or not? Or would you go after this townhouse that might need a light renovation? What would you go after? Go ahead and throw it in the comments. Greg, you said the multi. If you were, looking to house hack, the multi would be the way to go. You could, get into it, live in one of the units, get in for a low down payment price. Man, I tell you what, if I would have known about this way back when, Kirk and I would have definitely probably gone the multi route. I mean, the property, our first condo that we lived in, we bought and knew we would eventually turn it into a rental, but I didn't know about house hacking then. I didn't know that was an option. Had I known that was an option where we were in our stage of life, I would have totally done it. Richard, you said you love multifamilies. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where Kirk and I are. We own a couple single families, and we're kind of at the point now where we want to scale. And not saying we want to scale fast, because we don't. We want to grow steadily. But multifamilies seem to be the way to go. It's diversification. You're diversifying your risk, right? If one property or one unit is vacant, and you've got the others to kind of to make up for that. So it's just a great way to go. I really like the multifamilies as well. So, all right, so that kind of wraps up tonight's training. I hope this was helpful to just kind of see me go through and talk about analyzing a property, showing you how to actually use the analyzer. Again, whenever you click on it, make sure that you go to File and make a copy. Otherwise, you will not be able to. You won't be able to make any kind of adjustments. So make sure that you go to File and make a copy. Once you do that, you can save it however you want to save it on your Google, whatever it's called, Google Sheets area, and you'll be able to access it anytime you want. So thanks for tuning in tonight. Questions, concerns, I'll hang out here for a couple of minutes. Those of you who are still here, any kind of questions that you have related to rental property, throw them in. It doesn't necessarily just have to be analyzing property. It can be about anything that we talked about this week. It can be about anything. It can be about financing. I'm here. Throw those questions in. I'm planning tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to kind of be a Q&A. And so I'll be jumping on tomorrow I don't know if I'll be jumping on super late since it's a Friday. It might be a little bit earlier, but I figured I could just jump on and do a Q&A. So you can jump on and ask as many questions as you'd like. You can submit questions ahead of time, and I can get those answered for you. But if you have questions, those of you who are here, go ahead and throw them in the comments section. Greg, good question. All right, I like this. Questions can be off topic. You can ask about anything you want. Greg, you asked, how do you feel about getting your real estate license to purchase rental properties and have access to MLS? Oh, Greg, let me tell you something. This is something that I've been grappling with, to be honest. So if this is something you've been thinking about, I'm right there with you. I think that there could be a lot of benefit to this. And, I'll just kind of tell you my feel on it. The reasons that I kind of have wanted to do this and go down this route, especially now that I've left my teaching job. And I don't want to get into or get my license to actually go sell people houses. I don't want to do that. I really just want it for exactly what you said. I want it to have access to the MLS. I want it to be able to get into properties when I want to get into properties. One of the things that's really frustrating, and depending, Greg, if you own any properties or not, you may know this too, or Richard or the others here. It can be really frustrating when you find a property that is at a really good deal and a good price, and you know it's going to go fast, and you just want to get in it right now, especially if it's vacant, and you have to wait for an agent to call another agent to, do that whole roundabout way of getting into a property, and then you can't even get in till the following day, and there could be multiple offers on the property already, right? If you had your license and you were able to just call that listing agent and make the appointment and go and do it when you were ready and on your schedule, I think that that's a huge, huge advantage to having your license, let alone getting access to the MLS. So you're going to be able to get access to things, as soon as they come up. One of our recent podcast episodes, maybe show 67, it was right around there. We had Josh Souder, who is an agent in Nashville, or outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And he was an agent and now turned investor, and that's what he said. He was like, I could see immediately when properties came on the MLS, he said, I was making 10 offers a day, trying to get that first property. And he was able to do that because he had access to the MLS and was able to see when those properties, are coming on right away. And then not to mention the commissions, right? You're either going to be, saving a little bit of money on a commission, earning a little bit of money. You could even, offer up if you're an agent and you're, representing yourself. You could even offer up some of your commission to sweeten the deal, to make your offer look a little bit better. So I do think there's a lot of benefits to it. And actually, as I'm sitting here talking about it, I'm kind of talking myself back into it. I thought about it and then I was like, no, and I've been back and forth. But sitting here talking about it, makes me think it really could be beneficial, as an investor to go that route. So I hope that helps, Greg. Any other questions people have tonight? If not, you can think about them tonight, write them down, make a note of them, email them to me, throw them up in the, in the comment section, and I can answer those tomorrow. But if any other questions, Greg, oh, awesome. You're working on it now. I'd love to hear about it. So yeah, let me know. I'd love to hear how the process is going and how, in depth it is. How time consuming it is. That's probably my biggest thing, is how time consuming it is. Richard, I think there's a software called Flip Comp that give you access to the MLS. It's a repricing. Oh, I'll have to check that out. Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure that there are probably ways for people who aren't agents to get access to the MLS. I just don't know what those are yet. And like you said, they could be pretty pricey. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's hit or miss in terms of that. I think if you have a pretty good agent, if you work with a good agent who's proactive, that can be really helpful because, they are going to hopefully be looking for you constantly. But that's really hard to come by. Kirk and I work with awesome agents. We have a couple of agents that we just love and adore, and they're wonderful. But I wouldn't say that they're the most proactive people where they're going out. We have told them we have money we want to spend. Find us property to spend the money on. And I don't know if it's a matter of they're just not being properties, or I realize that we're not the only people that they take care of. So, they're busy and they have a lot of other people and lives and things like that to take care of. So, Yeah, definitely something interesting to look into. So any other questions, comments, throw them in there. If not, we'll wrap this up for tonight. We'll be jumping back on tomorrow for the last day of the challenge. So thanks for joining me tonight. Jerry, do rental mortgages? Oh, good question, Jerry. You asked, do rental mortgages always involve 20% down? If you are going the conventional financing route, so this is typically if you're not planning on living in the property. If you're going to buy a property and live in it first, whether it's a house that you're going to turn into a rental or it's a multi-unit where you're going to live in one unit or the other, those you can typically get for the lower down payment, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. You can get potentially an FHA loan, so you're looking at 3.5% to 5% down. If you're going to go the conventional route, which means it's going to be a pure investment property, you are not going to be an owner-occupant in the property, then you're going to be looking at 20% down. Now, I know that there are some programs out there, like for instance, here's one, homepath.com. I don't know if any of you have ever been on it before, but it's a kind of like a Fannie Freddie website for distressed properties. They're not quite bank owned, I don't think, but you can get their properties that are distressed, vacant. And I know that at one point, I'm not sure if there still is like this, so you should check it out. They had a deal where investors could actually only have to put 10% down. So, that was cutting that down payment in half. Yes, you're going to have to put a little bit of money into the property probably to get it up to, a nice standard for somebody to live in it, but you're only having to put 10% down. But typically, yeah, Jerry, across the board with conventional financing, you're going to be looking at 20% down. One of the perks with that, though, is that you aren't going to be paying that private mortgage insurance. I mean, that's a perk with putting 20% down. It's just hard, especially if it's a first property or a second property. It's hard to come up with that 20% down payment, but that's a lot of cash. Even on a cheap property, that's a lot of cash. So yeah, you're looking at 20% down. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know if it was. Richard, I hate PMI. I know, I do too. It's the worst. And actually, we only have it on one of our properties. It was the one that we lived in first. We lived in it for 5 years and then turned it into a rental. And so we got it back when it was actually fairly cheap because it's gone up quite a bit since we bought that property. Thank goodness. Yeah, I don't like it either. It's just one extra thing eating into profit. Other questions? If not, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for tonight. If you guys are tuning in later, not live with me right now, throw your questions in here. I will answer them. I'll get in and I'll comment on them and answer them. And then I might even pull those into the live Q&A that I'm going to do tomorrow. So any questions that come up, like I said, you don't have to wait until tomorrow. You can email them me, private message me, comment in the group, write a post in the group, whatever it is, throw them in there. Kirk and I are here to help. Kirk is on kid duty tonight, so he isn't in the chat box tonight. So let me know whatever we can do to help. We're here for you. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Greg and Richard, Jerry. Thanks for being here tonight. And hopefully we'll see you guys all tomorrow live for our 5th day of the challenge. All right. Talk to you guys later.